Hi everybody, welcome to my homestead and welcome to my channel. In this video, I have a few different things to talk about. Namely, I got a couple emails from Ezra Roper and Jackie Skousen about a fireball over southern Utah, also the Vegas area, also Arizona and Southern California. Jackie sent me some footage from her doorbell cam. Here it is right here. It's going to come from right here. You see that? So a really cool thing that just happened. And this is really interesting just because just a couple months ago in August, we had another fireball in Utah. That one actually caused a really big boom that was heard all the way from southern Idaho all the way down to the Provo area. And this fireball, I'm going to show you a map of where it was reported, like reports of people seeing it. And this fireball actually is reported as far north as almost the Provo area. So between the two meteors, it covered all of Utah and then some additional area. Okay. So thank you, Jackie, for sharing this. Let's go ahead and get into this. Actually, before we do, I just wanted to share a quick comment somebody shared. This is from Tina Fam. And sorry, this looks all weird. I zoomed in and this is what happens. So Tina Fam said, my bestie messaged me yesterday and said Elder Holland came to Ephraim last night, where she lives, and told the youth to prepare to be on the welcoming committee. It's a known place of refuge. Amazing. That is amazing. I'm hoping I can get some more details, if possible, Tina Fam, but thank you for sharing that. I feel like that can only be taken one of two ways, or I guess the two ways that pop into my mind is either prepare to be the welcoming committee for the second coming for Christ when he comes, or be the welcoming committee to people that are, I don't know, coming to Utah or coming, probably not Utah. It's too expensive there, but they'd be better off coming to the Midwest. But maybe, we've been talking about large numbers of people joining the church, and I'm not so sure how much of that would include before the millennium, people joining the church before, and how many after. We've talked about specifically with Brad Wilcox in a talk that he gave earlier this year in February at a fireside. He was talking about that, how when the second coming happens, all of a sudden there's going to be billions of people that are going to want to join the church in one day when Christ identifies himself as the head of this church. That's what he actually said. And he used the word billions. Well, I think he said, like, what happens when, 2 billion people want to join the church in one day? Are we going to have enough missionaries, bishops, ward buildings, temples, etc.? So I don't know if Elder Holland was talking in this sense. And, of course, this is just, we're getting this, this isn't coming from like a talk or anything. I do believe Tina Fam. She's been watching the family watching the, she's been watching the channel for a while. So anyway, I just thought I'd pass that along just for your consideration. Of course, take everything with a grain of salt, but I think that is pretty neat. Okay, now back to the meteor. Okay, so this is from St. George News. It has some video there if you want to watch that. I'll put the link for this in the description below. Want to read some of the details. Scientists aren't officially saying it was a meteor, but it was a meteor. A fireball lit up the sky throughout the region from Cedar City to Mesquite at 7:53 p.m. How about we pull that up? Cedar City. I have another image to show you, but just for right now, Cedar City is right here. Okay. The southwest corner of Utah, more north than St. George, which is down here, right on the border with Arizona. So right here, and then Mesquite, Nevada is right here. That's actually where my father-in-law lives. Um, he used to live up in the Salt Lake area, but then he retired and now he's in Mesquite. So anyway, so this article is talking about this area. All right, moving on. Um, let's see. Captured on some doorbell cameras, the meteor could be seen brightening and seemingly breaking up enough that many on social media reported thinking that the meteorite remnants must have landed in Milford or Hurricane or Bloomington or Mesquite. But sightings weren't limited to South Utah. On social media, people in Peoria, Arizona, Las Vegas, and Rancho Mirage, California, also were certain that some extraterrestrial piece had landed in their neighborhood. As of Tuesday afternoon, the American Meteor Society had received 125 individual reports from Utah, Arizona, Nevada, and California of the meteor sighting on its Fireball reporting page. And we're going to look at that in just a second. The report furthest north was from Nona, Utah, just south of Provo. You see that? Now, I think I've heard of Nona, Utah. Let's see exactly where it's at. Nona, what? Did I spell that wrong? Nona. Just south of Provo. Oh, probably Mona. With an M. Mona. From Mona, Utah, all the way down here. So, like I said, within the last couple months, Utah, northern and southern Utah, have experienced an incredible fireball and meteor. Most of the population of Utah lives along here, along like I-15. Of course, there's other places. There's like Moab and stuff like that. But for the most part, the population kind of goes from up here, Logan, Ogden, Salt Lake, Provo, down here, Nephi, Scipio, Fillmore, down this kind of line right here that goes down the state. So virtually, I would say if everyone had been outside, I'm sure that almost the entire state would have seen one of these two meteors, which is really interesting. Okay. The furthest south was Tucson, and the furthest west was Calabasas, California, in the Los Angeles area, where it was reported as having a quote-unquote green glow and quote-unquote lots of flames. The reports locally ranged from quote very large and bright enough to light up the area outside in Beaver to quote having an audible noise at Dixie and Sunset in St. George to a person in Mesquite wondering if it was a firework. Okay, so it sounds like there was a noise associated with this too, which is interesting. I'll show you why in just a minute. But just keep that in mind, that this had a noise that went along with it. This is the map put together by the American Meteor Society. And I have a blown up version here. So all the way up here, Mona, Utah, to all the way down here, to Tucson, to all the way over here, San Diego, and then wherever Calabasas, California is, probably like right here. So that's a really, really large area. It also includes the Phoenix area, Flagstaff up here, Tucson. You have the Las Vegas and Lake Havasu area right here. So it's interesting. Okay, moving on. This was mentioned in this article, the Chelyabinsk asteroid from 2013. We're actually going to be talking about that because I realized a couple things really interesting about this that I didn't realize before. I've already done a video about this meteor in 2013. Okay, this was like an incredible happening. This was a sure sign in the heavens. We're going to go over some of the details for this. So, but continuing on with this article, while the annual Orionid meteor shower reached its peak over the weekend, Plate doesn't think the Monday night meteor was related to that shower, which is made up of debris from Halley's Comet. Quote, I doubt this was an Orionid because those tend to be small, Platt said, noting Orionids are usually no bigger than the size of a pebble. American Meteor Society astronomer Robert Lunsford, author of the book Meteors and How to Observe Them, told St. George News the fireball occurred too early to be an Orionid, but was possibly a part of a different meteor system. Quote, it was more likely a member of the Taurid meteor shower, which is expected to produce an increased number of fireballs over the next 2 weeks. Some call it a swarm, but it is really a concentration of larger than normal particles from Comet Encke that has been perturbed by the gravity of Jupiter. This perturbation caused this concentration to approach the Earth every 3 or 7 years. The last Taurid swarm was in 2015. Okay. Okay, so we just had that happen. All right, let's move on. Now, if you'll recall, on August 13th of this year, there was that other one that happened in northern Utah. And this one definitely had a boom. And here's an article here. I'm not going to really go over that again, but you have these two events happening just a couple months apart. We've noticed that the date for this, 8/13, seems to be a mirror date with when Angel Moroni dropped his trumpet from the Salt Lake Temple, which was 3/18. Okay, 3/18. So 3/18, 2020 for the Salt Lake Temple, Angel Moroni going quiet, dropping his trumpet. And then, over the Salt Lake metro area on 8/13, you have a very loud event up in the heavens. So I do personally think that there's something to that. You believe whatever you want, but you have this quiet event 2 years before, and that's when the missionary work kind of dies down, is restricted. And then April of this year was when there was the big call up for missionaries in General Conference. And then they even had one of our, the last Sunday of the month be to review those talks that was like where they were calling for missionaries. So the church, the first half of this year was really focused on getting people to go on missions, right? And then just a few months after that, in August, that's when you have this big boom, this audible boom over Salt Lake, Provo, Ogden, Logan, southern Idaho. Okay. So I think that's very interesting. And I think they're probably connected. And I'm going to show you a couple things when it comes to the phrase rising generation in just a minute. Okay, so you have that. Now, Jackie had sent me this article from KJazz 14. And in the video, not in the article itself, but in the video where she's talking at about the 40-second mark, she said that she spoke to an astronomer in that the meteor in August over Salt Lake, that type of meteor only happens once or twice a year globally. And she didn't really go into the details exactly what the astronomer meant, if it was just the fact that it was associated with a big boom along with it. The way that she talked, it kind of made it seem like it was that way. So I'm not sure. If that's the case, if meteors only happen, meteors with a boom only happen on average once to twice a year, well, we just had this one in southern Utah that also had a boom, although not as loud as this one. So if that's the case, that makes this even more rare, that between the two booms, it covers the entire state of Utah. I don't know. I feel like these are signs in the heavens, frankly. Okay, so you can check this out. I'll put the link in the description below. Now, let's go even further back in time, back to 2013. There was just a gigantic explosion that happened as the result of a large meteor over Russia in Chelyabinsk. I remember when this happened, it caught my attention. Even back then, I wasn't thinking so much about the second coming, but when this happened, I don't know if you remember it when it happened, but I was like, wow, that is probably something to pay attention to. And after my research today, I think it's even more something to pay attention to, and I'll show you why. So here, this is from NASA, the Jet Propulsion Laboratory, California Institute of Technology. They have this map that they've put together. It goes from April 15th of 1988 until October 20th, 2022. So I guess that's the last time it was updated. And it's a graph, or it's a chart that shows you these different meteors, and it's color coded in terms of impact energy. Okay, so dark blue, low energy; red, high energy. Can you guess which one was the one that was Chelyabinsk? It's this one right here, the only red one on this map. Okay, Chelyabinsk. So you can see that it basically dwarfs all other impacts or all other meteors, whatever you want, or fireballs, whatever you want to call it. And it also turns out that not only was there this, but over here on December 18th, 2018, the first year of President Nelson's presidency, you had Russia's second largest one. Okay, so this is just 4 years after this one, but it's on the other side of the country. Interestingly, this is the area that we were talking about. Shoot, I can't remember if it was on this channel or my other channel, but there was an analysis done by Forbes where they thought that China, instead of going after Taiwan like they want to do, China seems to be ambitious to expand its territory. And the Forbes article was talking about how it's actually maybe more likely that they would take some of Russia up here, because I guess historically they've had conflict and disagreements about this border right here, and that there's a lot of ethnic Chinese that live in Russia. So anyway, it's just interesting that you have this second largest explosion in Russia on this side, close to this area. But maybe more interesting, this one. This one, the Chelyabinsk one, this happened in February of 2013. Okay, February of 2013. What happened almost exactly a year later? The annexation of Crimea by Russia. In February and March 2014, Russia invaded and subsequently annexed the Crimean Peninsula from Ukraine. And according to this right here, the military operation started the 15th of February. So exactly 1 year and 5 days later, that's when Russia went after Crimea. Okay. After they had the largest, I'm going to read some details about this. Let me show you. Okay, so here's like a little GIF video of it. Okay, look how bright it gets. It gets so bright it actually looks like the sun, and that's because it gets brighter than the sun at one point. Okay, it says here that this meteor had 26 to 33 times as much energy as that released from the atomic bomb detonated at Hiroshima. That's a really big explosion. And the rough equivalent in energy output to the former Soviet Union's own mid-August 1953 initial attempt at a thermonuclear device. So this was no small thing. This was absolutely no small thing. I pulled up a couple videos that have compilations. You've probably already seen some of these, but I'm going to put these two in the description that just has all this footage, both people's reactions as well as actual footage of the meteor itself. And frankly, the boom from it is terrifying. Even just over YouTube, you can tell that if you were there, you would have like had a heart attack. I'm sure that I would have. So, okay. So an explosion as big as essentially a thermonuclear bomb. Then it says here, it is the largest known natural object to have entered Earth's atmosphere since the 1908 Tunguska event, which was also in Russia, which destroyed a wide, remote, forested, and very sparsely populated area of Siberia. The Chelyabinsk meteor is also the only meteor confirmed to have resulted in many injuries. No deaths were reported. Yeah, could you imagine being injured from a meteor? Do you have any friends that have been injured as a result of a meteor blast? Here it says non-fatal injuries, 1,491 indirect injuries. And then property damage, over 7,200 buildings damaged, collapsed factory roof, shattered windows, $33 million loss. That is pretty incredible. There's a few more details about it. Scientists reveal the full power of the Chelyabinsk meteor explosion. Directly beneath the meteor's path, the shockwave was powerful enough to knock people off their feet. Windows were shattered in more than 3,600 apartment blocks, and a factory roof collapsed. At least 1,210 people were treated for injuries, most from falling building debris and flying glass. At its most intense, the streaking fireball glowed 30 times brighter than the sun, leaving people on the ground below with skin and retinal burns. One resident in Corkino, 18 miles from the point of peak brightness, lost skin from their face after being burned by radiation. The intense heat evaporated 3/4 of the meteor. Around 4 to 6 tons reached the ground, as meteors representing just 0.05% of the original rock. Chelyabinsk airburst was the largest since Tunguska in 1908. But unlike that and other historic events, the strike was recorded by a full suite of modern technology. Satellites photographed the meteor from space. Security and personal video cameras filmed the rock's violent path across the sky, and sensors picked up infrared waves as lumps hit the ground. The shockwave left a trail of damage 55 miles on either side of the rock's trajectory, according to a report in the journal Science. Okay. Now, what I find interesting, okay, as we talk about Crimea, right? So this happened almost exactly 1 year before Crimea happened, before military action took place there. Chelyabinsk is here. Okay. That's Chelyabinsk. So keep an eye on that, where it's at in Russia. And then we're going to look at the eclipse that happened yesterday, the partial solar eclipse. It's in the same area. It's in the same area. So for whatever reason, the heavens are speaking to this area of Ukraine. Wow, the Ukrainian counteroffensive has gone very well. They're starting to annex Russia. Chelyabinsk here, it's actually, I saw it earlier. It's actually outside of this orange area. I guess I'll just look it up. Chelyabinsk. I was able to easily find it last time. There it is, Chelyabinsk. So it's close. Well, no, when you zoom out, it's inside this area, this orange area. But when you zoom in, this is like a even darker area right here. But whatever the case, it's interesting because the path of the meteor came from this way. So it kind of crossed over this darker orange area and then over Chelyabinsk. So, what do you make of that? You think it's just coincidence or what? I don't. That happening almost exactly a year before Crimea was invaded and then annexed. And then just after Russia annexes these 4 regions of Ukraine, and at such a crucial time when Kherson is about to fall and the Russians are, retreating, the Ukrainians are having a successful counteroffensive, as there's all this talk of false flag attacks on the dam, and also a dirty bomb, and Russia talking about using a nuclear bomb. And after general conference, this particular general conference and everything that we know about it, and then this happens, this partial eclipse over this area. During this really pivotal point during the war, I don't know. I don't know. I'll leave that to you. So it's just fascinating. Now, when we go back to this map, I wanted to look at Utah because I wanted to see if they have the Utah explosion on here, and they don't. I don't know if they're still kind of like working through the numbers, because my understanding with a lot of things with natural disasters, it usually takes time for them to like really go through the data before they finalize everything. So maybe that's why it's not on here yet. But there is this green dot. Unfortunately, I don't know where it's over exactly, but here is Arizona. Arizona is like right here. So it looks like it's in, well, actually, it looks like it's probably in the St. George area, but this is from November 18th, 2009. Okay. Now I'm going to show you something interesting that I think is interesting. Okay. So by this point in 2009, November 18th, both conferences were already finished. Okay. So both conferences are done for the year. And then a month later, you have this, and it's in the green range. So it's, it's pretty good. So I wanted to see, okay, was there anything going on in 2010 when it comes to the phrase tracker? And as it so happens, 2010, all across the board is actually a very quiet year in terms of our terms that we look for that are associated with the second coming. It's just, all across the board, except for like 2. 1, as soon as I find it, 1 is your testimony. That was said 8 times that year, which is a lot compared to the other years. And then the only other thing that stands out in 2010 is rising generation. Okay. Rising generation. Let's zoom in. You see this right here? So this is like within the first few years of President Monson's presidency. And 2010, you have this record-breaking year of 7 times the phrase rising generation being used. We've already noticed that, it has been used in the past, but a lot more, sparsely. Like there's big gaps of just white, especially here, 50s, mid 50s to the mid 60s. It's only brought up a few times, just kind of like every now and then. But then starting in 2006 and then all the way till now, it's been mentioned every single year. and multiple times, except for 2006, with a peak in 2010. Okay, so Meteor event over Utah at the same time, the next year in General Conference, the rising generation is mentioned a lot. I don't know that those are associated, but I think that's kind of interesting. Um, you would think that maybe this term would increase over time, but it just kind of like stays steady for the most part. I haven't updated 2022, so this only represents. Wait, have I? I can't remember if I've done this one yet or not. I don't know. I'll double check that some other time. But this probably only represents April 2022 General Conference. But this is interesting. So I wanted to point out a few things about the rising generation. Someone had kind of talked about this before. Here, let me zoom in on this one. Okay, so this is a little thing that I put together that's based on the 2018 Worldwide Youth Devotional. It's really the only one of its kind. And when I say that, yes, there's been other worldwide devotionals, but they typically are for young adults. There's also face-to-face events. But for the youth devotionals do not happen very often. They're usually other types of events, not worldwide youth devotionals. So I hope you understand what I'm trying to say. This is the one called Hope for Israel. This is the one where President Nelson calls up the Lord's Youth Battalion to gather scattered Israel. And a lot of incredible things are said in that devotional. So what's interesting is that the people in that devotional, the youth that were turning 18 that year, so they were born in the year 2000, okay? And they would have started their missions roughly that year in 2018, okay? And then you just go down the line, okay? You have the youth right now, the ones that are going on their missions right now this year, roughly, were born in 2004, and they were 14 years old at the time of the devotional. Okay. And the youngest group, okay, at that time, 11-year-olds, I can't remember if by that time they were doing the whole 11-year-old thing where if you turn 12 that year, but you're 11, then you join young men's and young women's. But whatever the case, I still put it on here. They were born in 2008. They were 11 that year, and they would be leaving on their missions 2015. Okay. So that's kind of, I think that's kind of interesting because 2010, let's go back to this. So in 2010, when you compare these two, what am I trying to say here?
Well, first off, you messed up. They'll be leaving on their missions in 2025, not 2015.
Oh, did I say 2015? Oh, sorry. These guys are leaving on their missions. The 11-year-olds at that time are leaving in 2025. They were born roughly in 2008. And then anyway, I don't know what I was meaning to say. I think I confused myself. But whatever the case, here you have it. You have these groups that have gone out, the 14-year-olds and older. And then we have just a few more after that, that if this is the rising generation that's being referred to, then the last ones would be starting their missions in 2015. And, well, okay, what I'm trying to say, I guess, is we got 2009 and then 2010. So this was the year, this is what I'm trying to say. This was the year that we had the spike in talking about the rising generation. So if this is a thing, I realize that it's speculation and I don't care. And I'm not telling you to believe this. I think it's okay to consider possibilities. Um, it would be probably appropriate that there would be that big spike in 2010 because that by that point, this group right here would have already all been born. So it's like, okay, they're born, they're here. It's the rising generation. That's what I was trying to say. So that's kind of an interesting way to think about it, huh? And the year before that was actually pretty high too with 5 because up until that point, that was the most that the rising generation had ever been used was in 2009. So in 2009, that would have been the year after the last group was born in 2008. So that's kind of interesting. I'll color that one orange. Let's see. There, orange. So I don't know. I think that's interesting. And this is the year that we have that meteor. So I'll put here Meteor, Utah. Or I'll do Utah Meteor. Utah Meteor. Okay. So there you have it. Okay, what else did I want to go over? So there's that. We talked about Chelyabinsk. We talked about the eclipse. Here's the American Meteor Society's their data of people reporting meteors and fireballs to them. So this includes all incidents that have at least 5 people reporting or more. Okay. So you can see there's a lot. This is all 2022. In fact, on this page, this is all October. Okay. All of these, wait, are they all October? Oh, that's the universal time, and this is the local time. Yeah, these are all in October. Okay, there's a lot. Here, this is the Arizona, California, Nevada, Utah one that we started talking about at the beginning of the video. Okay, it does stand out because here, the way that you can tell that it was a bigger event according to these numbers is the number of reports. So you can see for this event, there were 139 reports compared to these other ones that are just in the double and single digits. This, you have sound. So the D sound is delayed sound. C sound is concurrent sound. And what's interesting about this, you'll see that most of these have no. But here you have 2 yeses for both D and C. So I don't know. You can also sort this, by the way. You can go to number of reports with at least 100. And that narrows it down. Although you see that there's still quite a few. 3 in January, 3 in March, 1, 2, 3, 4 in April. So yeah. So similar sized, or as far as like reporting numbers, similar sized events. It looks like they happen on a monthly basis. So that's something to consider. But again, I still think it's significant just because of its proximity to the previous meteor that was just a couple months before, and putting the two together, it covers the entire state of Utah. So I do think that it's significant. You can also go here to statistics, and it breaks it. There's like different ones that you can look at. This one breaks it down by year. Okay. So pink represents events with more than 100 reports. So, they're more on the rare side. It looks like 2021, according to their data, was a big year for meteors. 2021 was the biggest year for meteors. This year's not over yet, but, and I'm no expert, but I don't see this really catching up to 2021, but it could. So we'll just have to see. But 2021, not only did it have the most meteor reports total, it also had the most reports that were 100 reports or more, with 38 events. So that's interesting. Well, and then look at the purple, 57. That blows all the other ones away. The only one that even comes close at all is this one with 48 in 2019. Now, the thing about this, I didn't go through like to their like frequently asked questions or whatever. I'm guessing that the reason why the numbers go so dramatically down as you go back in time is probably because that's when they started tracking these things. So back in 2006, I don't think that there were only 3 events. It's just that maybe they were new to doing this, and so they're just lacking data from those early years. But it seems like they're at least pretty well established by, 2015, and so I think that this is probably pretty accurate. So you can see that there's an increase. There's an increase of meteors according to this. I could be wrong because I don't know. Maybe you would still say, no, they're still relatively new, so these numbers are off. But if you know more about them, then, let me know. But at least the last few years, I think, are relatively accurate. So 2021 is the king when it comes to meteors. 2021 was also let me look at this. Let's go to top 20 California wildfires. Because 2021 was also quite the year for California wildfires. Let me just do a search. 2021. I want them all highlighted. Okay, there's 4. So 1, 2. No, maybe 2020 was. Let's see. Control F, 2020. So 5 in 2020. 4 for 2021. Okay. These are the top 10 largest California wildfires. And between those 2 years, 9 of them are in those 2 years out of this list of 20. I pointed that out before, but California has really been on fire for the last few years. Yeah. All right, that's enough of that. Yeah, I think that's going to be it for this one. As far as when this occurred, well, we're past the Jewish feast days now, so it doesn't really seem to line up with any of those. This happened on Monday, which was the 24th. So I don't know. I don't really see anything too much there, but that's where we're at. I don't think so. All right, so I think that's going to be it for this one. So if you haven't already, please make sure to subscribe, like this video if you liked it, leave your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. Also make sure to share it, and I'll talk to you guys later.